Kevin Feige plucked James Gunn from the abyss of obscurity. No one had heard of James Gunn before we went to see Guardians of the Galaxy, that first movie. And for all you people who hate James Gunn today, you all went to see that movie, don't lie, and you loved it. And when you came out of the cinema, especially the guys, you were walking down the road like the Guardians were, and all you could hear was that song. Oh, I've got a feeling. Because I didn't see that film in the cinema. I saw it at home. I've got a very big garden, and I was walking around with that damn song. And I was feeling like Chris Pratt, Star-Lord. Oh, I've got a feeling. And it felt empowering. So, credit to Kevin Feige for plucking James Gunn from the abyss of obscurity. James Gunn's a very interesting person. He found himself in the MCU. But what's interesting about that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, it has very few connections to the rest of the MCU. Don't forget, at that time, they were doing their Easter eggs and, their cameos. But apart from one post-credit scene at the end, this movie really doesn't have much of a connection to the rest of the MCU. So not only does he pluck this unknown writer-director from obscurity, but he lets him do what he wants. And then in the volume 2, he lets him do even more what he does. And, volume 3 was amazing. I don't care if you don't like James Gunn. I don't care if you've got an agenda against James Gunn. He does really, really good CBMs. I personally enjoy Peacemaker, and I thought the Suicide Squad was pretty good too. But we're a divided fandom. But James Gunn finds himself in such an extraordinary position. He's tasked not only to rebuild WB, but to rebuild the Superman franchise and the DC IP. Can he do it? Some people say yes. Some people say no. I think potentially he can, but it's such a difficult job and there's no foregone conclusions here. So today we're going to talk about Superman Legacy. We're going to talk about Blue Beetle because there's going to be a trailer dropping later on. By the time you see this video, the trailer may have already dropped. I will be doing a trailer 2 reaction for Blue Beetle, and I'm going to become a Blue Beetle simp. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. But then we're going to go into the negative dive because there has been more reshoots for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And I'm very concerned for Jason Momoa and James Wan. I feel so bad for these guys because they deserved so much more. Anyway, we've got a little article here. Who's it from? CBR.com. And they talk about the influences, comic book influences of Superman Legacy. DC reveals which comics inspired Superman Legacy. DC Universe Infinite reveals which Superman comics inspired James Gunn's forthcoming film reboot Superman Legacy, starring David Corenswet. DC has revealed which Superman comics fans should read before Superman Legacy hits theatres in 2025. What you got to understand, these are influences. They're not going to be adaptations. That's something that was getting confused when James was first announced for Superman Legacy. DC Universe Infinite recently revealed that 4 titles that inspired James Gunn's forthcoming film reboot, Superman Legacy, Mark Waid's, Lemuel Francis, and Jerry Allen Gullen's Superman's Birthright, 2003-2004, Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely All-Star Superman 2005-06, Jeff Johns and Gary Franks Superman Braniac. Ooh, Superman Brainiac. Could that mean that Superman Legacy will use Brainiac as the villain? I didn't know that was one of the influences. Very, very interesting. You're going to have to excuse me. There's sun on my phone and the phone's just useless. Very difficult to read, but I will progress. So that's very, 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 very interesting. So we've got All-Star Superman, Jeff Johns, Gary Franks, Superman Brainiac 2008, and Johns, Joe Casey, Joe Kelly, and Mark Schultz, Superman what's that? Ending Battle 2002. The other comic book titles that DC implores fans to check out include Superman Space Age, Superman Lost, Superman Red and Blue, and Superman American Alien, and Superman Unchained, among others. So basically, he's taking a lot of different influences, but the Braniac one is very, very interesting to me. I mean, and there has been rumours about Gunn using Braniac in this movie, and people have been distracted from the rumours about the Authority being involved. And I've already kind of told you what's going to happen there. They'll be mentioned, we may see them, but I don't think they're going to play a big role in that movie. We will see. Superman Legacy is set to be the first film released under the new DC universe. James Gunn, who will write and direct the forthcoming superhero feature, previously revealed that Legacy will be centered around Superman's heritage, with the film exploring how both his Kryptonian parents and his Kansas farmer parents inform who he is and the choices he makes. The film has also been described as a workplace origin story. Now, James Gunn has said that's not the case. He's actually corrected these reports. It is not a workplace origin. Clark's been around at the Daily Planet for a year, and he's been Superman for a year at the beginning of Superman Legacy, suggesting that a good portion of the film will focus on Superman's civilian identity, Clark Kent, who is a reporter for the Daily Planet. After Warner Brothers and DC Studios screen tested several actors for the titular role in June 2023, David Corenswet Pearl was cast as the DCU's Kal-El Clark Kent Superman, with Rachel Brosnahan set to play his love interest. Look, she's not just a love interest, come on. That's not classy, is it? Lois Lane. At this time, no other characters have been cast for Superman Legacy, although siblings Alexander Skarsgård's Succession and Bill Skarsgård John Wick Chapter 4 are reportedly being eyed to play iconic supervillain Lex Luthor. Besides Luthor, Daily Planet photographer Jimmy Olsen and members of the superhero team, the Authority, are also on the casting sheet. Right, let me tell you about the Skarsgård brothers. Now, one of them apparently may play a young Jor-El. That's all I'm saying. A young Jor-El, and the other one will play Lex Luthor. That's the rumour. That's not official news, but I'm hearing we may see a younger Jor-El in Superman Legacy. Why? I don't know, but it's very exciting. So keep it here on Movies TV Mad, because I've always got my ear to the ground. I don't have, I ain't a critical drinker. I'm not being interviewed by Russell Brand, but I am someone who knows things, who is told things. Please stay on this channel if you're a passionate fan of entertainment and not propaganda merchants. Keep it here. If you love entertainment, you're going to love Movies TV Mad. Anyway, so where are we? Iconic supervillain Lex Luthor. Besides Luthor, Daily Planet, yeah, where we've already read that. Since fans know that Gunn likes to include music in his superhero films, particularly the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, they have begun asking the DC studio set if certain Superman-inspired songs like David Bowie's Starman will be featured in Legacy. Gunn has so far vetoed. Well, yeah, basically, particularly Guardians of the Galaxy, they have began asking the DC studio head if certain Superman-inspired songs like David Bowie's Starman will be featured in Legacy. Gunn has so far vetoed every song fans have mentioned, from Kryptonite by Three Doors down to Sunshine Superman by Donovan. While Gunn did not provide a reason for every exclusion, he did state that the popularity of Starman, as well as its frequency in Superman fan edits, were some of the reasons why he wouldn't use the song in the upcoming superhero film. That's interesting because, that could help promote the movie. But if he doesn't want those sounds in there, he doesn't want those sounds in there. Look, I don't mind these types of songs being there, but I really would rather a great symphonic score, which I believe we're going to get. And I think I now know the identity of the person who's going to score Superman Legacy. We'll talk about it very, very shortly. And that's the article. So, yes, I have James Gunn on my Instagram. So I checked him out, and on two of his stories, he had John Williams standing live conducting the Superman theme and the Superman love theme from Superman the movie. Now, not a lot of people are talking about this, but it's the biggest hint ever, isn't it? I think we can conclude that John Williams will either compose Superman Legacy or they're going to use his themes from Superman the movie. Now, John Williams is now officially retired. Now, he's in his 90s, right? Or is he 100? He's very old. But I recently saw him live conducting the orchestra for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The only good thing about that film is the fucking music. Still great. But it could be that they may use Williams' themes from Superman the movie. But just imagine this. You know, we could have a scenario where we get a brand new score from John Williams for Superman Legacy. And what a way to end your career as a movie composer. Because I think that will be it for him after that. I mean, you know, look, nobody wants anyone to die. Nobody wants John Williams especially to die. But I mean, we've all got to age out. We've all got to go somehow. And, you know, the film's called Superman Legacy. And what a legacy this would be. I think this is an opportunity that John Williams can't refuse. So I hope he does compose the music, that he does score the music for Superman Legacy. But it's not difficult to divide DC fandom or any fandom today. There will be people, we know who, that will be very, very angry about this, even though John Williams is one of the finest composers, movie composers and television composers, by the way. He did the original Lost in Space as well in history. Who wouldn't be excited about this? So I think, look, he's hinting. He's there, he's hinting it. Nobody's really caught on, but I think one way or the other, John Williams will be involved with some of the music, at the very least, of Superman Legacy. And that's very, very exciting. Now, I think it's going to be very interesting with the villain situation, especially now that I know that one of the influences for Superman Legacy is a Braniac comic. Look, we've wanted Braniac to be the villain in a Superman story for a very, very long time. We know that Bryan Singer was going to use Braniac in the sequel to Superman Returns, and we've spoken about that many times on this channel, and I was excited for that script because I read that script and I thought it was amazing. But yeah, I think, you know, I mean, look, I suppose what he did in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, maybe he was practicing for Brainiac. And don't be surprised if the actor who played the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 also plays Brainiac. Now, you're going to hear all the stuff, oh, like, but he's a black actor, blah, blah, blah. He's a very good actor. He was amazing in Peacemaker. He was amazing in Guardians, like, you know, just like the actor, you know, Larry Fishburne, who played Perry White. I had no issue because he's a great actor. It's the same here. But it wouldn't surprise me if something like that happens, and I think that's very, very exciting. So it is looking like two very exciting developments are going to happen here. That we're getting Brainiac in Superman Legacy, and that John Williams will be involved somehow, in some element, of scoring Superman Legacy. And what a legacy that would be. So for me, that's totally really exciting. I want to know, in the comments below, would you be excited for John Williams' Superman the movie themes to be used in Superman Legacy? But beyond that, would you like him to score this movie? I'm not going to hide my opinions, I never do. This would give me a fucking geek boner. I want John Williams to do this. I want Brainiac in this movie. I'm hyped for this movie. Let me know what you think. I'm starting to get really hyped for the release of Blue Beetle. As I said, trailer 2 is coming today. If by now, by the time you're seeing this video, you haven't seen it already. Trailer reaction here by me on Movies TV Mad coming up. If you already haven't seen me doing that as well, bring that on later on as well. But Xolo Mariduria, who plays Jamie Reyes in the movie, has teased a lot of DC cameos, which is also very, very exciting, isn't it? Have a listen to this. Xolo Maradona teases multiple cameos in Blue Beetle. I think if you're a DC fan, there's going to be more than just one character you recognize. This is from The Wrap. Wow, very, very exciting. So, who could cameo in this movie? Now, we know that Keaton originally was going to cameo in this movie, but can that happen? Now, this is interesting because James Gunn has said this is the first DCU character, but this is not a DC Universe movie. So that's very interesting. That's an interesting distinction, as we've spoken about a few days ago as well. So if this is still a DCEU movie, they could have the Keaton cameo. Could David Cornsweet, because I believe Cornsweet and Rachel were actually cast a while back. I don't think the casting stuff was going on as late on as, you know, when The Flash was released. I just think they knew The Flash was going to be a disaster and they knew when to release the news. I think that's obvious. And yes, of course it was spin. You need positive spin. Any business would have done the same thing. Could it be that David Cornsweet is in this movie as Superman quickly? A quick cameo. That's all they could have done. It'll be interesting. But he has teased not just one cameo, which is very, very interesting. I mean, let's do this again. I think if you're a DC fan, there's going to be more than just one character that you recognize. So that's very, very interesting. Will there be a post-credit scene in this movie? But forget Michael Keaton. Could it be George Clooney's Batman coming back for more? Who knows? Jason Momoa's Aquaman. Could be anyone. Could these cameos be from the Blue Beetle universe? Ted Kord. I think Ted Kord would be more exciting to Blue Beetle fans than Batman, Superman, or anyone else. And I would like that. I would like if Ted Kord was teased for the future as well. We know that Victoria Kord, either his sister or his wife, is one of the villains of this movie. Susan Sarandon is a great actor. I'm very excited because at first Sharon Stone was going to play this character, which would have been cool as well. But Susan Sarandon, the former wife of Tim Robbins, also a great actor, by the way, you know, I'm sure she's going to do a great job. She played a great villain in Enchanted as well, if you remember that. But she was in the good Little Women movie as well. But she's done so much. So I'm excited about that. I do believe, I said this before, that Blue Beetle is in a similar position to what Aquaman and the the first Aquaman film was in after Justice League, because people are kind of worn out. But Blue Beetle doesn't have that baggage. I think that's an interesting situation. And just reading that article the other day about some of the elements they're going to be dealing with, like kind of the Latinx version of the afterlife. And of course, there's different cultures in Latin. You know, Latinx isn't just one culture, right? There's different types of, you know, Latin people as well. I've got to be clear about that because I think that's just simplifying the situation. So I'm very interested to watch this film, actually. I'm a lot more excited for this film than I was The Flash. One of the main reasons is I haven't seen a test screening of this movie, which is weird for me. So I don't know. The only things I know about this movie is what I'm reading and what people are whispering in my ear. And I'm being told a lot of interesting things about this film. I don't know if these things are true or false or, you know, conjecture. But this film apparently will be around 2 hours, 7 minutes, which is one of the shortest DC movies. But just because your film ain't long, it doesn't mean your film ain't going to be good. I don't expect it to be The Dark Knight or anything like that. But this could be a really good film, a very interesting film. But yes, there's going to have some cultural commentary, of course. You know, the man directing it is Latinx. He's very proud of his culture. That's understandable. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. As long as it's done well, as long as we're entertained by the movie. I don't know if this film is going to be any good. I've just got to... I'm doing it again, like we all do, before a movie comes out. We get all hyped for DC, then it's a disappointment. I hope this time that we're not there. And I know some of you have got no hope for Blue Beetle. Some of you don't even want Blue Beetle to succeed. Some of you are praying for its destruction so you can mock the studio. Again, I somehow have the feeling you're not going to get your own way this time. I don't think it's going to make lots and lots of money, but I think it will be a solid hit. In terms of Barbie, a film I have major issues with, I think like that will have a great first week, but I think it will dip really quickly. There's too many good movies out there for it to succeed. But going back to DC, I think Blue Beetle does have a chance to succeed. I think it's an interesting film. I mean, lots of fans are complaining in the lack of marketing for the film. Now, I've said before, this is what I would have done. For me, Blue Beetle would have had an exclusive trailer just for cinemas, basically added to the Flash movie, which would have helped the Flash movie. And Blue Beetle would have had a post-credit scene at the end of the Flash movie as well. Now, that's how you hype people up. So it's not really getting pushed that much. But, you know, we've either seen the trailer, the second trailer for Blue Beetle, or we're about to see it, which is very exciting. And what I expect once we do see that is a lot more hype, a lot more posters. There's lots of art. There is hype for it, but they're not over marketing this movie. And there's a reason they're not over marketing this movie, because they know this movie, even if it's successful, won't make enough money for them to justify an expensive marketing call. This film cost around 100 million. It wasn't an expensive movie to make. So if it does make money, if it is a surprise hit, nobody knows. Look, nobody knows. But as I say, I do think this film does have a chance. We will see. I'm starting to get really excited, slightly excited for Blue Beetle. So it seems like James Wan's and Jason Momoa's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has recently had even more reshoots. I'm very disappointed for Jason and for James. They are wonderful artistic guys. They're very passionate about what they do. Look, Jason came up with a beautiful screenplay, which they barely used. They've used little bits and pieces. You know, this was a subject that he was very, very passionate about. The environment. We know Jason's very passionate about, you know, what's happening to our waters and the environment. And he's a great guy. And the stuff that, if you follow him on Instagram as well, he's a great guy as well. But yet more reshoots. And this can't be a good thing at all. The more reshoots you have, the worse the situation is. We know that the Flash movie had reshoots as well. And those reshoots didn't help the movie. Why do they do so many reshoots? Now, I want to be clear here. Pickups are different to reshoots, right? Pickups are simple little things, you know. If there's a can of cola on the shelf, but it wasn't there properly, and they wanted to put it centrally, then that's a pickup, right? But reshoots mean a fundamental changing of elements of a movie. But why wasn't there so many reshoots, if any, back in the day? I'm talking about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. Why is there so many reshoots today? Why don't they just have faith in the movie that they've made? Well, it's quite simple, because these studios have people on the internet all day seeing what you and me say. And that's the problem. Not only that, but the worst thing is, it's not just the advent of social media. It's these test screenings, which I believe have to be stopped, because I don't believe test screenings work. Did test screenings help The Flash? No. Did test screenings help Justice League? No. Did test screenings inform them that actually that audience, you know, really liked Zack Snyder's Justice League, so instead they pressured Snyder, he left, and they brought in Whedon? No. And test screenings led to them shelving Batgirl. Don't forget about that. So test screenings are a bad thing, and it's these test screenings that basically advise them whether they should do more and more reshoots. That's the problem. We talk about this industry these days being something that shave against the grain, that don't listen to people. The problem is they're listening to the wrong members of the audience. You know, they're listening to critics from movie Twitter who barely have 200 or 1,000 followers, but have press passes and talk shit about movies, because they're not there to see. Basically, for me, if I like or hate a movie, did I enjoy it? Did it give me a buzz? Did it excite me? You know, when people say, well, this movie is overstuffed, I mean, I don't think you should be voting a movie up or down on the amount of characters in it. What feeling did it give you? Did you enjoy it? That's the point of movie opinion we don't get anymore. So these damn test screenings, even though I love them myself because I've gone to quite a few, as you all know, but I could live without them, right? And I think the advice they're taking from these test screenings are no good. Because look at what happened with Solo. They fired the 2 directors. Directors who animated film the Across the Spider-Verse movie is made nearly $600 million globally. And Kennedy fired them. So this is the reason we're getting so many test screenings. They're so nervous these days. It's so important. It's worth so much money. So what do? Listen to the advice of people at test screenings who make them lose money. As I said about James Gunn and Superman Legacy, don't worry about what we say. Go and make your movie. Richard Donner and Tom Mankiewicz made Superman the movie. They made it theirs. They didn't give a shit about the noise. And it was a beautiful movie that the world loved. And it's lasted over 40 years later. You've got to listen to your own hunches as an artist, as a movie maker. But we are now in a situation where they're listening to the wrong people and it's making them lose money. So I think we need to cut down on these test screenings and listen. Like all these kind of initial reactions, it's like yesterday we had the initial reactions for Barbie. And they're all so disingenuous. The colour, wow, how did Greta, get all that, colour into the movie? Well, she bought all the pink paint in the world and they painted it up. Play School was very bright and childish, right? Nobody was giving the director of every episode of the children's programme Play School. Oh my God, Jemima and Humpty Dumpty, they look so amazing. They were crediting her for shit that even you and me could do. And there was one person actually in the initial reactions of Barbie who said, yeah, it's all right, but I have this issue with that and that issue. And I applauded them. At least you're being honest. So you can't trust critics. You can't trust these influencers anymore because they all want to keep their access. And you can't trust the people going to test screenings because they're not real fans. I mean, yes, I'm a real fan, but I'm just one opinion, right? But they listen, like everything, right? When you vote for who's going to be in government, they listen to the many. So I may put my cross there, but it doesn't really matter if another 6 billion people have put the cross somewhere else. And that's the problem with test screenings. So we're getting, yet again, more reshoots for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So a film that was perfectly fine from the very beginning, by the way, and it got worse and worse and worse with every test screening because they kept on making the changes. And as I say, it's Jason Momoa and James Wan particularly that I feel bad for because I absolutely adore the first movie. I think it's beautiful. I think it's great, got beautiful colour palettes in it. The visual effects, this man, listen, the reason we haven't seen a trailer yet, by the way, because the man's a fucking perfectionist. He won't allow the studio to show anything until he's got everything right. This is a beautiful artist, a beautiful director in James Wan, and he deserves better. But you lot are going to destroy his movie because you have an agenda against Amber Heard. And that breaks my heart. Not because of Amber. Amber's done what she's done. She deserves the mockery she's getting. But even that is becoming a bit too much. I've moved on from Amber Heard. I saw the court case. It was ridiculous, and I don't think Johnny or her came out of it that well. By the way, Johnny obviously came out of it a lot better than she did, but basically they're just a couple of nutters who shouldn't have been together. Should we call it what it is? So poor Jason Momoa and James Wan, because I don't know what they think of Amber Heard. I don't know if they want Amber out of the movie. Now, Walter Hamada tried to get her removed, but this woman is so nefarious and so clever and so poisonous, she was able to harness a situation where she had to stay in the movie. And this movie will most probably suffer because of her. And she is a great mirror. That's, and she's great in this movie. But it's just very sad. It is very, very sad what's going to happen to this movie. Because as I say, I can't see a scenario where these reshoots actually make Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a better movie. And I think that's very, very tragic. But I'm still looking forward to seeing it. I think it's a James Wan movie. I know it's a James Wan movie. And I think it's still going to be bold, epic, and stunning. And maybe, just maybe, this could be another surprise hit for DC and WB in December. We can only hold our collective breaths and cross our fingers.